I mean, no one can be mature as a leader, as a founder, until you reach a certain moment and you'll be able to really overcome it. And when we choose to be an entrepreneur, that is kind of like a particular kind of journey. If you really become an entrepreneur, then you'll be an entrepreneur for life. We have to be very intentional about what we do. Human beings are very complicated and very diverse, and that's what makes life difficult and fun at the same time. We are not robots. We are not being the same.
Good morning, Vietnam. Welcome to another episode of Vietnam Innovators. I'm your host, Hao. Thank you for tuning in for the podcast every single week and making this podcast possible. Without you, tens of thousands of listeners, this program would not be possible. Today, we're in a different set because it's a live, exclusive edition of the podcast with a special guest. His name is Lê Hồng Minh. You guys might recognize him. He's really the idol, kind of the OG, original founder of startups. OG, yes. Founders of tech startups here in Vietnam. He's been building this business, a small one called VNG, for about 20 years. And he's still showing up every day and getting the job done. So we're here live with an audience, with a few founders, not a few, a lot of founders from all around Asia Pacific, Vietnam, Indonesia, Japan, and India, and more. So we're very lucky to have everyone here. And of course, Anh Minh, welcome to the podcast.
So good morning, everybody. My name is Lê Hồng Minh. I'm the founder and chairman of VNG. So we've been around for 21 years, so to be exact. I started the company in September 2004 with a few friends as a game company because my passion is kind of like a gamers. And over the years, we built different business. So fast forward to today, we have 4 major business. So the first original business is game publishing and development. Now is, we keeping the leadership position in Vietnam for the past 20 years. And now the aspiration of the team is to become a global game company. The second business is Zolo. So we launched a messaging app in 2013. And now it's kind of like the most used consumer app in Vietnam with 80 million monthly active users. So basically everybody in Vietnam with a smartphone use Zalo. The third business we built from 2017 is a e-wallet and fintech, kind of like, and we call it Zolo Pay. And thank God it survived until today. So now it's hopefully going to become a significant part of our business. And we launched our fourth business, which is what we call a digital business. So we've been a consumer technology company most of our life. Then 5 years ago in 2020, we saying like, okay, let's explore B2B, so enterprise software and solutions. So we call it digital business. And now it's our fourth business. So there's a 4 business, and obviously we also invest a lot in the ecosystem. Have a lot of famous investment, like the latest one that you heard or in the news is Tiki. So that's one of our investment, kind of like 10 plus years ago, and we invest in other startup in Vietnam as well. We also incubate a lot of new ideas and product inside VNG, and I think that is what we kind of like really passionate about. So our original mission when we first start is make the internet change Vietnamese life. And about kind of like, 6 years ago, we changed that. And the reason we changed that is we kind of saying like, hey, you know what? We not fulfilling the first mission, but we kind of like, having a product that many of the Vietnamese use already. And we have a global ambition. So we debate a lot on what is our new mission is. And then one day I wake up and I ask, okay, why did I go to work today? And I think about it, and then I say like, the reason I want to go to the office is just simply 2 things. So number 1 is I got to work with many of the cool technology product, and second, I have to work with all the people I love. So we make that, like I say, okay, I'm the founder, so I make that to become a mission, right? So our mission now is build technology and grow people from Vietnam to the world. That is kind of like, what drives me to go to work every day. So that the short introduction about who we are, and I'm glad to be here with all of you.
So, Min, one of my first questions was about the vision of the company. So thank you for sharing that. Has that evolved over time, or did you always have this idea, 15, 20 years ago that this would all kind of develop?
So I think when you talk about vision, is think about like how we really imagine or dream about the outcome of a lot of the things that we do. And I think that like all of you, all the startup is, I don't think that anyone start out with a huge outcome or with obviously technology startup, we often talk about changing the world. But I think in the initial years, right, all we think about is how to survive, because that's the most important thing. And I don't think that anyone gonna have like survival as the vision, right? Even though that's the most important thing that we have to do every day. And then I think we're gonna be able to afford to really have grand vision after we pass that kind of survival kind of period. And then for me, the way we think about vision is part of our journey as individual. I'm a big adventure person, so I often go hiking, and then I talk to the team so you see a mountaintop you want to climb, and that is your vision, kind of like what you see, right? Because I think when we think about vision, and this is also a very personal thing, we can talk about really big vision, but for me, it's kind of like if you don't at least see it, not in a literal way, like you climb a mountain, right? And even though you never seen Mount Everest before, but some of us can say that, hey, you know what? I want to climb Mount Everest one day. That is what you see. So you kind of see it, and then you say, okay, how am I gonna be able to put a plan together so I can go there? So that for me is the metaphor of vision. And then once you reach the mountaintop, and you're gonna be, okay, I enjoy it, but then let's think about the next thing that I want to do. And I think from a personal journey perspective, that's what drives us, right? Because, and then it's different for each individuals, right? We have different kind of goals and dreams and objectives. And as a leaders, the key thing is how you're gonna make something both personal to yourself and also personal to a lot of people around you, and really kind of make it real. For example, let's say we want to climb Mount Everest and we want to put together a team of friends to really climb it, then we need to find people who may not have that idea from the beginning, but they need to be excited about that idea and going to do it together with you. And then that's the role of leadership. You have your own dreams and imagination and goal, but at the same time, you need to kind of convince other people to go through the journey with you. And also all those people, they feel that is part of their own journey as well. So for me, that's always the fun part of being an entrepreneur, a founder, right? You keep having ideas and kind of in Vietnamese way, we say dụ, which means that I'm not sure what is the translation for the word dụ in English.
Anyone?
Enroll, but it's so you convince, but then the word dụ is a little bit more fun than convince, but convince other people to say, let's do this together.
You motivate people.
Yeah.
Looking back at this journey, Min, was there any turning point where you felt like it could have gone either way? It could have gone bad, it could have gone good, but it seems like in your case, most of things went good. Are there any of those points in your history and upon reflection that you could share?
Many, of course, even recently, but that is another.
How often does it happen? Like every day, every month?
I don't think that is every month, because if you have to face a so-called, when we say either going good or bad, I'm gonna just take it to extreme, right? It's gonna be life and death, and then we have to face a life and death moment every month, and it's not really a good journey. Maybe you need to check into hospital to really kind of see how are you. But I think there's a few moments, right? And I think as founder, we always no one can be mature as a leader, as a founder, until you reach certain moment and you'll be able to really overcome it. Let me kind of like, trying to make it really personal to you because a lot of the talk, I don't want it to make it more only high level, right? And, talk about everybody gonna have a reason or a story of why you start your business. And I think that for me is the first life and death moment of the whole business, right? Because it could be born or it could not be born. That kind of like, and then I think that is a lot of the time, maybe it's a very happenstance, it's maybe just kind of like, you don't intend to do it, or maybe you intend to do it. But then I think it's kind of fun to really reflect a little bit on why you start the business in the first place. And you can learn a lot from that, kind of like, so that is the first moment. I think many of you face the kind of like decision of whether I shut down the business or I continue, because continue is hard, it's not easy. Shut down or sell or whatever, right? I think that is also a metaphor for a life and death kind of like decision that you have to make. And I think the most important thing when you have to face certain decision of whether you're gonna continue or not continue, you have to think quite deeply. Because continue not always gonna be the right answer. Sometimes stopping is the right answer, right?
So Minh, VNG is obviously one of the most successful companies in Vietnam, and with or without you coming to the office every day, it's going to keep going. So my question for you is, how do you stay resilient as an individual to keep showing up every day? Because today, VNG, you have thousands of employees, amazing leaders, they can get the job done. What motivates you to remain coming in every day and doing your job?
Like I say, right, I love building product and working with the people I love. So that's what I come to the office every day. That's my personal reasons. And I kind of talk about a personal journey already. And I think everybody have a journey in life. And when we choose to be an entrepreneur, that is kind of like a particular kind of journey. Because we have to be very intentional about what we do. And when I'm trying to say intentional is this, if you really think about your life, many of the things that we do is because of other people around us kind of tell us like, hey, this is the way, the road that you need to travel. For example, most of us grow up and don't have to work to be intentional. If we are lucky, right? If we have good family, we raise up in good environment, we go to school, we go to university, we graduate. All that path is predetermined. Obviously, you still have to make a decision of what kind of university that you do and what kind of class you attend, what kind of subject you do. But most of the time is kind of shaped, like you have to make the choice, but you don't have to create a choice in the first place. And if you go to work, many of us kind of also go to work in company, I think. That kind of also a predetermined path. You still have to make the choice, but you don't have to create the choice yourself. And many of people go through life like that, and it's nothing wrong, nothing bad about it, right? It's okay. But as an entrepreneur, you really think about your journey. You have to create. You have to make the path yourself. Yes, you still want to climb that mountain, but the path to go that mountain is not the path that people create for you. In a leadership position, you have to say, okay, you know what? The vision is where you want to go, but the path you have to create. And I think being intentional all the time is an emotional, exhausted thing. Kind of like, you really think about it because, human being is, if you hear the saying, we are a habit creator, right? A lot of things is embedded into our gene to say, even breathing, the most important thing is a habit. We don't have to be intentional, because intentional about breathing, we die. So many of the things that, human being is, we prefer to be not intentional. Sometimes we do, but so the journey that we take is very intentional, whether you really feel it or not. And I think for us, when you ask me, hey, what is the reason what is the resilience, what is the reason? I don't think that it's about tactic at all. I don't think it's about I can say you have to do sport and you may to practice. Different people have different kind of way. But I think the tactic part is not really that important. The most important part I want to stress is that as an entrepreneur, the reason for us to show up or to be an entrepreneur, to be a founder, to be a leader, is we need to be intentional about the important thing that we do, right? Where the company gonna have kind of like what product, what business we get into, who we're gonna hire, who we want to grow, who we want to put into the leadership team, what kind of partnership we're gonna build, what kind of interview that we're gonna sit for, kind of like, And then so that not fit for everybody. But once you become an intentional person, one thing that you learn is that it can be very hard to become a not intentional person. You kind of like, that's why if you really become an entrepreneur, then you be entrepreneur for life. And I want to be entrepreneur for life. That's why I keep showing up to work, and I want to create new things and having fun doing it. So, that's just simple.
Talking about intentionality, the life of an entrepreneur, or even for you running a couple thousand person business, there's unexpected things that happen every day. How do you balance this idea of experimentation with keeping to the plan? Because someone like you've started multiple businesses within VNG. How do you maintain that focus on those cash cows, the one that keep going, with the new innovation? For example, Zolo Pay is one of your newer products. How do you keep that focus? You can speak more broadly, maybe not too specifically, but over 21 years, I'm sure you've had different chapters of wanting to be consistent and experimentation.
Depend on the stage of your business. I think that everybody start out by wanting to create something new. I mean, we are the same. But over time, I think that, again, we are a creature of habit. We are like human beings. We prefer stability over instability. I mean, it's how hard it is to really kind of like, run a new business or do new thing, right? So I think after a while, nearly all of us gonna settle into like, okay, you know what, now we build something and we want to keep to be stable. I think that is, the default setting of us. So again, we need to be intentional about doing something new. So I think what I really want to say is this: when we do something new, and then I make mistake, is how much of that new thing that you, as a leader, as an entrepreneur, need to be involved in. And I think one of the, you can read so many kind of like, I'm not an innovation expert, but you can read so many stories about kind of like, big company not really be able to do new stuff. And my own reflection is this: in order for the business to be successful or for the experiment to be successful, not only you need to allocate resource, that's a given, right? You have to put the budget, you have to kind of like, put the people to do the new thing. You have to allocate the most important part of your resource, which is our time. And then how to do that, again, is different for each business, right? So for me, one of the things that I'm proud of most is that for all the business that we built from zero, so like the game business, Zolo, obviously Zolo have a long evolution history, Zolo Pay, and even our enterprise business, I involved from the very beginning of building from like, zero. So we not just like, hey, this is the idea, let's put a team together and then kind of like give them money and let them run. We do that as well, and many of the things that we do like that, the success rate is very, very low. Again, our time is very limited, not just the time in a day or time in a week, but our time in the world. So what kind of thing that you want to spend your time on is, again, it's also a personal thing. But I think that you cannot really do something new if you don't really become a driver, or at least an important part of that project yourself. So now, I mean, like, I'm a chairman, but, I still go to work. And then the thing that I really want to do is I want to start new AI business for VNG, right? Because that obviously, excited many of us. And I, obviously, personally, I try to learn. And then I'm experimenting, doing new things with AI to see like, how can we really create bigger business in the future.
Well, talking about AI, can you give us a bit of a sneak peek about what you're thinking at VNG?
Okay, so here's what overall what my broader theme, and then hopefully some of the podcast listener gonna find it interesting and kind of like, reach out to us. So in the beginning, it's this brand new thing, and you learn and you read and you try to experiment, right? So we do have, like, we put together a team, we funded to really do LLM model. And the team is very, very successful. I think that we are the most successful LLM model in Vietnam, and maybe in the region. The team from Zalo trained everything from scratch, and it's ranked very, very high. I mean, we only rank, so even like, in one of the kind of like a competition run by government, we are ranked number 2, and we have our model built from scratch with 13 billion parameters. And the number 1 model is a kind of like fine-tuning open source model from Alibaba with 70 billion parameters. So the team is very, very proud. But one thing we also realize is that, okay, we cannot keep up with the investment from a model kind of like building perspective with the biggest tech company out there, like, the Google and the Meta and like the OpenAI, right? I mean, no way there's a local player in us. So obviously, like many of us, we are focusing on application. But what kind of application that we're building? And then one of the things that we also changed our mind right now is that, okay, before, and right now, many of you are building application for a local environment. And we have to choose, right? Again, which kind of application, which kind of segment that we avoid direct competition with the biggest company out there. And also that kind of like VNG thinking from like, the past 20 years. But now the way I feel is that competition gonna come from everywhere in the world. And it's very, very, very hard to really do something that cater for a small local audience. Even like, language-wise, focusing on Vietnamese is a very, very hard thing. So the number 1 thing is we think about like how to do it globally. And if we do it globally, we only do application, we don't have the resource, what we're gonna do, okay? So just to share with you some of our thinking. And then another way of thinking is like, okay, we have to do something that the biggest company would not do, that we be able to really have a competitive advantage over that. And then another kind of like moment, and we have like discussion inside the company, and we kind of saying, you know what? If you think about countries like Vietnam, like Indonesia, like the Philippines, like Thailand, what are the difference with the US? And the difference is, I mean, is we have majority of our labor force are non-knowledge worker. And if you think about all the AI application right now, it's all targeted to the knowledge worker, right? Like all of us using ChatGPT or whatever the version of AI bot that we, like AI chat or AI model that we use, and we sit behind a computer every day at work, right? How many people in Vietnam sit behind a computer every day at work? There's a lot, but not a majority. So 60%, 70%, maybe 80% of the people who work every day never sit behind a computer at work. So what kind of co-pilot, what kind of AI that we can have to really enable them to increase the productivity, to enable them to really kind of like, having this like, I also use AI too. And so that is kind of like the theme that we are thinking hard about. We're saying like, okay, let's build AI co-pilot for the non-knowledge worker. And we believe that is going to be a huge thing. And we think that the competitive advantage is the people who sitting in Microsoft is not going to build AI co-pilot for non-knowledge worker yet. Or at least they're not going to build it for people who work in our country. So
I'm
that
curious.
is the general thinking.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, that's really fascinating because when I reflect on, let's say, one of your newer products, Zolo and Zolo Pay for that matter, you've been able to dominate the market. I mean, my notes here suggest, and maybe it's the fact actually, is you're way ahead of Facebook, Instagram, TikTok in terms of several key user metrics. Did you have that same mindset when you built the messaging service and the pay service?
I think the team that built Zalo, when they start out, we don't really think about winning over Facebook or WhatsApp yet. I think when they start out, we I think the general idea is, okay, this is going to be a huge opportunity, let's do it. And I think the reason that the team be able to win is that they really, really focus on building the number one messaging just for Vietnamese. Let me try to tell you that, I've talked about like it's very hard to do local thing, right? But we also kind of like having this conversation a long time ago, and we say, okay, competitive wise, there's no way we're gonna be able to compare with Facebook, right? They have tens of thousands of engineers, their budget is unlimited. We have like at most 500 engineers working on Zalo, and we have not a lot of budget, but they're gonna build a messenger for the world. They never build a messenger for Vietnam. So let's really focus on something that they don't do and really do it really, really well. So for example, Zalo has been one of the early win we have is Zalo adopt HD picture sending for everybody. And the reason we both do it because we only have to serve a smaller set of users versus like if Facebook do it, they have to do it for all the country, all the different kind of different network configuration and phone configuration, right? It's a lot more complicated than that. We also the first one that really do end-to-end encryption in Messenger. And now the team is launching full-size original picture quality sending on Zalo. So you can send like the raw picture that you tag with your phone or even your DSLR camera on Zalo. Anything that none of the message platform done that. So that's one example of how we really focus on one market and do it, right?
Thank you, Minh, for sharing your insights about business building. I want to shift gears a little bit to talk about your mindset and what you do every day at VNG as the chairman. For a lot of startup founders, we struggle with building systems, with habits that give us that sustainability and longevity to stay in the game. And just before we went online, we were talking about how you participate in triathlons. That was a 10-year journey for you. You didn't start off doing triathlons, but you took up that new habit, that new hobby. So I'd love to hear from you. How do you stay sharp? How do you stay effective over the long haul?
I encounter this kind of question a lot, and then my typical answer is, I think everybody are different, right? I don't think that we're gonna have one formula so we all can follow and be. I think the basic formula are the same. Like, if you want to do triathlon, Ironman, and you need to practice. Everybody know. You need to learn how to swim, and you need to spend time running and biking. And then, like for me, normally like to train for the race, I do about 2 races a year. And I only have 2 or 3 month block of training for that one particular race. The rest of the year, then I just train normally. And then 2 or 3 months, and I really have to, build a habit of training about 10 hours per week. So on a Sunday morning is the day where I wake up the earliest 5 a.m. to go for my long bike ride, like 3.5 hours. So that kind of the basic everybody know. And I think there's no need for me to kind of repeat. I think again, it's about us as individual, how we can improve ourselves and become better person. And I think as long as we have that motivation in us, and we know that the meaning of life for us is to improve ourselves so that we can do the thing that we want to do, then we're gonna learn how to be building good habit, having discipline, building system in our personal life and in our organization. I don't think the tactic is is important because there's so different kind of tactic, different kind of method, right? Like even training for even eating, we have 20 kind of diet program that you can follow, or even the same thing with training, right? So same thing. I think that each of us gonna learn and choose the method that fit for us. I don't think that there's a magic formula or a magic kind of plan that adopt this and you can become Superman, So the most important thing is to truly, intentionally having a motivation. And then motivation is only us can have. I cannot help you to have motivation. Like if you go and interview and hire people, right? We want to hire excited and motivate people. And yes, you can help people to have motivation, but then motivation first and foremost needs to come from within. It's always, we all learn in reading, it's intrinsic motivation is always the driver, not all the extrinsic kind of like motivation. So as long as you have motivation to improve yourself as an individual, as a leader, you're gonna find a way.
Anh, you've probably interviewed thousands of people for jobs at VNG, and you've interviewed founders when you make investments into them and you make bets and partnerships with them. What are some of those signals that tell you that these people are intrinsically motivated? Are there any like signs or ways of expression, how they hold themselves? What are a couple of things that you personally have looked out for to define what this intrinsic motivation is? For example, when I interview people, just like you, I look for that, but then it kind of goes away. It's not consistent. And then there are some that are consistent. So are there any sharings that you can perhaps make? And for our audience to know as well, not just the founders out here in the audience.
Yeah. Also, this is a hard question. And the reason it's hard question is I think, again, I don't believe in there's a formula. And also, kind of like, we also need to develop our people sense, kind of, right? You can read all the books and you can read all the formula about like how you can kind of like understand people, what kind of question you ask. But it's very hard for us to really say that, okay, I look at you and then how you smile and how you talk and like kind of like, maybe some people are very introvert, but they have a deep sense of motivation by doing really excellent work every day. And we will meet people who talk really well, but hey, that's all they do, right? Like they don't really, apart from the talk, they don't really do the work. I mean, human beings are very complicated and very diverse, and that's what makes life difficult and fun at the same time. We are not robots, we are not being the same. But I think there's a few things I share. I think number one is, okay, I use a different analogy, right? How do you know someone a good person from the first time you encounter? And again, it's not something that you can teach. You kind of like, sometimes you can feel, sometimes you cannot feel, and you kind of, okay, I really don't know. So the only way to really know someone is a good person is you kind of like spend some time with them, right? And see them, how they behave, how they do, and you can read a lot of stories. Like, one of the famous stories is like how they treat the not important people, right? There's a story about like, treating the waiter. And so that's one, there's a lot of story and analogy and so on and so forth. But kind of like, you asked about motivation, but I say like, how do we know which one is a good person so that we want to connect with good people, right? And we kind of want to avoid like the not good people in our life. And also that is a sense of people that we need to learn and develop over time. But you only know if you be able to observe them for a while. So I make a lot of mistakes hiring people. I think that they are very motivated, but turn out that they're not. I mean, there's no formula to say that I look at you and say, hey, you're a motivated person.
Are you a people person, Minh?
You can tell that I'm a people person. Obviously, I got motivated by working with people, by talking to people. And I think the thing that motivates me the most is I'm motivated by seeing people become really successful.
Were you always a people person, or did you have to learn how to be one, especially as you scaled up VNG?
The interesting part is I am an extrovert, but over time, I become a little bit more introvert. So extrovert is, I think, is my nature, but then over time, I kind of like, also enjoy time by myself. Like, for example, one of the things that I enjoy the most is to be alone when I can and just like, do the thing that I love.
Okay. Well, everyone, we're wrapping up today's podcast, but I always like to ask one final question for all my guests. So, Anh, we have you here on the podcast today to learn about your history, your insights, your mindset about leadership and people. What's one thing that you'd like to know so that we can invite a guest on this program? You can listen in and you can learn something as well. It could be about anything. It doesn't have to be about work. It could be about personal. It could be about AI. We'll try to get that expert for you.
I think I would want to hear about new ideas, people who think of, okay, I have this idea and I want to build it so that it will become something really meaningful and impactful. But it's not just stopping at idea. At least you kind of like, run it for a while and you kind of see the shape of it. So I want to hear about startup founders who are doing something really, really cool.
Okay. If you're a startup founder and doing something really, really cool, you can message Min and he'll follow up with you. He's one of the most biggest idols of the startup community in Vietnam. Such a pleasure to have him here, spare an hour and share it to the founders and of course all of our listeners on the podcast today. So thank you, Min, for coming in. Thank you for tuning in, guys, for another episode, a very special one with Lê Hồng Minh. See you next time. Bye-bye.